The highway stretched endlessly before them, a strip of cracked asphalt cutting through the dry, golden fields. The afternoon sun baked the car's roof, and the air inside was thick with tension. I told you we shouldn't have taken this trip, Tola muttered, arms folded tightly across her chest. And I told you we needed the brake, Dio shot back, gripping the steering wheel harder than necessary. His jaw clenched as he stared at the road, determined not to look at her. Brake? Tola scoffed. We're drowning in bills, Dio. The rent, tuition, the car loan. Do you even have a plan? From the back seat, little Morayo hummed to herself, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing between her parents. She kicked her feet against the seat, clutching her stuffed giraffe. Dio sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. We needed to clear our heads. I needed to clear my head. Tola shook her head. That's your answer to everything. Just run away from the problem. Pretend it doesn't exist. Dio tightened his grip on the wheel, resisting the urge to argue. They'd been going in circles about money for months now. Every time he tried to reassure her, it felt like he was patching a sinking boat with duct tape. Then, out of nowhere, Morayo's giggles turned into a sharp cry. Ow! Mommy, it hurts! Dio's heart lurched. He glanced at the rearview mirror and saw Morayo clutching her hand, her tiny face twisted in pain. What happened? Tola turned in her seat, her anger instantly replaced with concern. I hit my hand on the door. Tears welled up in the girl's eyes as she held up her palm, a small scrape forming on her soft brown skin. Dio exhaled. It wasn't serious, but Tola was already panicking. We need to clean it, she said urgently. Find somewhere to stop. It's just a scratch, Tola. Dio, I said find somewhere to stop. Dio sighed and slowed the car as they approached a filling station up ahead. It was a lonely outpost on the side of the road, with a rusting fuel pump and a small kiosk selling snacks. A middle-aged man in a stained white vest sat outside, chewing on a stick of sugar cane, his sharp eyes tracking them as they pulled in. Dio rolled down his window. Good afternoon. Do you know if there's a clinic or pharmacy nearby? My daughter hurt her hand. The man chewed slowly, then spat out a piece of cane. You're lucky. There's a hospital not far from here. Small, but they'll take care of her. Tola leaned forward. How far? About 10 minutes down the road. Take the next left, then go straight. You'll see it. Dio hesitated. Something about the man's stare unsettled him. But before he could say anything, Tola had already turned to Morayo. See, baby, we'll fix your hand soon. Dio forced a smile. Thanks, sir. The man nodded, his expression unreadable, and watched them drive away. The road leading to the hospital was narrower, lined with tall trees that cast long shadows over the dirt path. It felt like they were driving into a different world, one where the air was thicker, heavier. Then they saw it. The hospital stood at the end of the road like an old giant, its once white walls faded to a dull yellow. The windows were thick with dust, the paint peeling from the wooden doors. A single flickering bulb hung above the entrance, struggling against the daylight. Dio frowned. This place looks abandoned. Tola was already unbuckling her seatbelt. It's still running. Look, the sign says emergency 24/7. A nurse in a faded uniform appeared at the doorway, waving them inside. Dio's gut twisted. Something about this didn't feel right. But then Morayo whimpered in the back seat and Tola shot him a look. We're already here. Dio swallowed his own knees and killed the engine. Then they stepped into the hospital, and the doors closed behind them. The moment they stepped inside, the air changed. It was colder than it should have been, carrying a faint metallic scent like old blood and antiseptic. The dim overhead lights flickered, casting uneasy shadows along the stained white tiles. A small reception desk sat at the far end of the hall, manned by a thin woman in a faded blue nurse's uniform. Her name tag was scratched out. Tola, cradling Morayo's hand, approached the desk. "Good afternoon. Our daughter got a small cut. We just need someone to take a look." The nurse looked up slowly. Her smile was too wide, too forced. "Of course. We'll take good care of her." Dio shifted on his feet, glancing at the peeling posters on the walls: diabetes awareness, childhood vaccination schedules. But something was off. The posters looked old, like they had been there for years without being replaced. "So you can fill out this form while we attend to the child," the nurse said, pushing a clipboard toward him. Tola was already following another nurse down the hallway, holding Morayo's hand. "Tola, wait!" She shot him an exasperated look. "Dayo, please, let's just get this over with." Dayo sighed. Maybe he was just being paranoid. Maybe the eerie feeling in his gut was nothing. He grabbed the pen and started filling out the form: name, address, next of kin. The ink stuttered as the pen scratched against the paper. Silence stretched around him. He looked up. The hallway where Tola and Morayo had gone was empty. The door they had walked through was closed. Too quiet. A bad feeling clawed at his chest. "Tola?" His voice echoed in the empty waiting area. No response. He left the form half-filled and strode toward the hallway. Dayo's hands were shaking. He turned back to the reception, ready to demand answers. "Sir." He spun around. The nurse was back, standing behind the desk like she had never left. Her smile was still there, stretched too wide, her eyes unreadable. "You look stressed. Would you like some tea?" Dayo hesitated. His mouth was dry, his mind racing. "Where's my wife and daughter?" "They're being attended to," the nurse said smoothly. She gestured toward the tray beside her, where a steaming cup of tea sat, fragrant and inviting. "Please, take a moment to relax." Dayo frowned. The tea smelled good, too good. A warm, spicy scent that reminded him of home. His throat ached with thirst. He shouldn't. But he was losing control. Maybe he was overreacting. Maybe he just needed to calm down. Slowly, he picked up the cup. The porcelain was warm against his fingers. One sip, just one. The tea slid down his throat, smooth and sweet. Warmth spread through his chest. His tense muscles loosened. His eyelids grew heavy. The nurse's voice was distant now. "You must be tired. Just rest for a while." Dayo's head swayed, his vision blurred. He tried to speak, to move. Darkness swallowed him whole. Dayo's head lolled to the side. His body felt heavy, like he was sinking into the chair. A deep fog wrapped around his mind, pulling him under. He tried to fight it. His wife, his daughter, they were here, weren't they? Something was wrong. His fingers twitched against the empty cup. Then, nothing. Dayo's head throbbed. His hands trembled as he grabbed the reception desk for balance. "My wife and daughter," he rasped. "Where are they?" The nurse stared at him with a blank, polite expression. "Sir?" Dayo's skin prickled. "Tola, Morayo, they were here. I brought them in. My daughter had a small cut. You gave me tea." The nurse tilted her head. "Sir, I think you're confused." Dayo blinked. "What?" "You came in alone." The floor shifted beneath him. "That's not true." The nurse offered a slow, pitying smile. "There's no record of a wife or child. No one came in with you?" Dayo's breath hitched. He turned to the hallway, now cold and empty. The door shut tight. No, he whispered. Sir, the nurse said softly, as if speaking to someone fragile. I think you need to leave. Before he could react, two men in scrubs appeared at his sides, large, blank-faced, hands gripping his arms. Wait, no. He struggled as they dragged him toward the entrance. The doors burst open. Hot wind slapped his face as he was shoved outside. The doors slammed shut behind him. Dayo spun around, pounding against the metal doors. Tola! Morayo! His screams echoed into the empty night. Nothing, no sound, no movement. The hospital stood there, cold and lifeless, as if it had never swallowed his family whole. Dayo staggered back, his chest heaving. He needed help. The police. Someone had to believe him. Dayo burst into the police station, breathless and wild-eyed. The officers at the front desk barely looked up. I need help, he gasped. My family, my wife and daughter, they're missing. The hospital. A uniformed man with a thick mustache raised a brow. Calm down, sir. What hospital? The one down the road. The clinic. The officer frowned. There's no hospital there. Dayo's blood turned cold. What? The officer leaned back, exchanging looks with his colleagues. Sir, you seem distressed. Dayo slammed his hands on the desk. I'm not crazy. I brought my wife and daughter there. They took them. You have to. All right, all right. The officer sighed and stood. Let's check it out. Dayo exhaled shakily. Finally, within minutes, two officers drove him back to the hospital, except it didn't look the same. The once creepy, half-lit building now looked abandoned, windows shattered, rusted sign leaning to the side, dust and cobwebs covering the entrance, no lights, no nurses, just a dead, forgotten ruin. Dayo's knees nearly buckled. No, he whispered. This isn't right. The officers exchanged glances. One pulled out a notepad. Sir, have you been under any stress lately? Taken anything? Dayo's mouth went dry. You think I imagined this? The officer sighed. Sir, we have no reports of a working hospital here, and no missing person cases matching your family. Dayo felt the ground crumbling beneath him. It wasn't possible. They were erasing them. Please, he whispered. I'm telling the truth. The officer gave him a long, measured look, then shook his head. I'm sorry, sir, but it seems you're unwell. And just like that, they left him standing there, lost, alone. Tale's sake, a stranger in the dark. Dayo collapsed onto a bench outside the station. His mind was unraveling. Were they right? Had he imagined everything? Tola's voice, Morayo's laugh, the argument in the car, the tea. His hands clutched his head. A sob tore from his throat. Then, a whisper. Sir. Dayo's body tensed. Slowly he lifted his head. A girl stood in front of him, barefoot, hair tangled, eyes sharp with something ancient and knowing. She was just a child, but she looked at him like she had seen too much. I know where they are. Dayo's breath caught. His heart slammed against his ribs. He wiped his face. Who are you? The girl hesitated, then whispered, No stranger ever leaves that hospital. Dayo's pulse roared in his ears. The girl stood motionless under the dim streetlight, her frail frame casting a long shadow against the cracked pavement. He swallowed hard. You said you know where they are. The girl nodded slowly, glancing around as if making sure no one was listening. They're still inside, she murmured. Down below. Dayo stiffened. What do you mean? The girl took a deep breath. That hospital. It's not real. Not like you think. It's a place where people disappear. Strangers. Anyone unlucky enough to stop in this town. Dayo's stomach churned. The girl's voice dropped lower. They take them for their organs, kidneys, livers, hearts, whatever they can sell. If it's a family, they only leave one person behind and make them believe they imagined everything. Dayo's body went rigid. The nurse, the tea, the police dismissing him like he was insane. It all made sense now. He grabbed the girl's shoulders. How do you know all this? Her lips trembled. Because my father is part of it. Dayo's grip tightened. And you still want to help me? She nodded. If I don't, you'll never see your family again. Dayo's breath came hard and fast. This was real. He wasn't crazy. Tola and Morayo were still alive, and he was going to find them. The girl tugged his sleeve. Come with me. There's a way in. Dio followed her down the empty road, his heart slamming with each step. They weaved through narrow alleys, past silent homes with darkened windows. No one was outside. The entire town felt dead. They reached the back of the hospital, a crumbling wall covered in vines. The girl pointed. There's a tunnel, an old one. It leads to the basement. Dio hesitated. And my family? Her face darkened. If we don't get to them before morning, it'll be too late. Dio clenched his fists. He had no plan, no weapons, but he had no choice. He crouched down and followed the girl into the darkness. The tunnel smelled of damp earth and decay. The air was thick, suffocating as Dio crawled behind the girl, his hands pressing into the cold, muddy ground. How do you know about this tunnel? He whispered. My father used it, she muttered. When I was little, I followed him once. I wasn't supposed to. Dio's stomach tightened. They crawled deeper until the tunnel sloped upward. Faint, flickering light seeped through cracks in the ceiling. Then, the sound of metal scraping against metal. A door. The girl reached out and pushed. The hidden door groaned open, revealing a dimly lit basement. Dio froze. Rows of steel gurneys lined the walls, each covered in thin white sheets. A sickly chemical scent filled the air, disinfectant masking something much worse. Organs stored in jars, empty IV bags, a rusty drain in the center, stained dark, and bodies, not corpses, not yet, people, strapped to beds, motionless, their chests rising and falling slowly. Drugged, his breath caught when he saw them. Tola, Morayo, his wife was unconscious, her arm hooked to an IV. His daughter lay beside her, pale but breathing. A choked sob rose in his throat. They're alive, he whispered. The girl tugged his sleeve. We have to move fast. Dio's hand shook as he ripped the IV from Tola's arm. Her eyelids fluttered, her body sluggish. Tola, he whispered desperately, cupping her face. Wake up, she moaned softly, her fingers twitching. Morayo. He scooped his daughter into his arms, her small body limp against him. The girl grabbed his wrist. Someone's coming. Dio whipped his head toward the staircase. Heavy footsteps. A shadow stretched across the wall. They were out of time. Dio's pulse thundered. The footsteps grew louder, steady, unhurried. Someone who believed they had all the time in the world. The girl yanked his sleeve. This way. He hoisted Morayo into his arms, his muscles burning with fear and urgency. Tola was barely conscious, leaning against him, her legs weak. The girl led them behind a row of metal cabinets, crouching low. A door creaked open. Dio held his breath. A man stepped inside, tall, broad-shouldered. His uniform stretched over thick arms, his boots crunched against the floor. Pausing by one of the occupied beds, Dio could hear his slow exhale. Then, a sharp metallic click. A knife. The man muttered something under his breath. Then he turned toward them. Dio's chest squeezed. The girl reached for something on the floor, an empty glass jar. Before Dio could stop her, she flung it. It shattered against the far wall. The man spun around. Dayo didn't think. He moved. He grabbed Tola and Morayo, dragging them toward the tunnel door. The girl bolted ahead, pushing it open. But the metal groaned. The man's head snapped toward them. Dayo saw the flash of a blade as the man lunged. The girl screamed. Dayo twisted, slamming his shoulder into the man's ribs. The knife missed by inches, slicing through the air. Tola stumbled forward, gasping as Dayo shoved her toward the tunnel. The man growled, his fingers snatching at Dayo's collar. Dayo gritted his teeth and punched once, twice. The man reeled back, but not far enough. He charged again, then stopped, eyes wide. His body went rigid. Dayo blinked. The girl stood behind him, gripping a syringe. The man swayed, his knees buckled, and he crashed to the floor. Panting, the girl dropped the empty syringe. They use it to sedate people, she whispered. I stole one earlier. Dayo's breath was ragged. We have to go, she urged. He didn't need to be told twice. They dove into the tunnel, the darkness swallowing them whole. The tunnel felt endless. The damp air clung to Dayo's skin as he stumbled forward, Morayo still in his arms. Tola clung to his side, her breath shallow, her legs barely carrying her weight. The girl led the way, moving quickly despite her small frame. Hurry, she whispered. They'll realize soon. Dayo's thoughts raced. The man she had sedated wouldn't be out forever. If anyone found him, they'd know someone had escaped. Tola groaned softly, stirring against him. We're almost out, he whispered, squeezing her hand. Stay with me. The tunnel sloped upward. The girl pushed against a wooden plank above them, revealing a gap in the ground. Moonlight poured in. Dayo's heart leaped. Go! The girl urged. He climbed out first, pulling Tola and Morayo up. The girl scrambled out last, quickly covering the entrance with dry leaves and debris. Then they ran. The night was eerily silent. The town loomed ahead. Dark houses, empty streets, the distant glow of streetlights. Dayo's legs burned as he carried Morayo, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. They needed to get to the car. Tola panted beside him, still weak, but awake now. What happened? She murmured. No time to explain, Dayo said. Just keep moving. Ahead, the road stretched toward the filling station where it had all started. The car. If they could get to it, they could get out. But then, a sound. Dayo's heart clenched. Engines, headlights flared behind them. A black van peeled around the corner, tires screeching. Dayo's blood turned to ice. They know, the girl gasped. The van was coming fast. Dayo's mind screamed for a solution. They wouldn't make it in time. Then, the girl pointed. There, hide! A ditch ran alongside the road, overgrown with tall grass. Without thinking, Dayo dove in, pulling Tola and Morayo with him. The girl followed, pressing low against the earth. The van roared past. Dayo barely breathed. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, silence. He lifted his head slowly. The van was gone, but they weren't safe yet. They had to keep going. Dayo turned to her. Come with us. She looked away, her hands gripping her tattered dress. I can't. You can't stay here, Tola whispered. They'll know you helped us. The girl's eyes filled with something unreadable. I need to finish something first, she said. But go, before it's too late. Dayo wanted to argue, wanted to pull her into the car, but he saw it in her face. She had made up her mind. He swallowed hard, then nodded. Thank you. The girl gave a small, sad smile. Burn it down. Then she turned and ran into the shadows. Dayo slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and hit the gas. The road stretched ahead, leading them away from the nightmare. They didn't stop. Not until they saw the lights of a town far beyond that cursed place. Not until they knew they were safe. Back in the safety of their home, Dayo and Tola sat in the dim glow of their living room, holding hands. Murayo lay asleep on the couch, her small chest rising and falling peacefully. They should have been relieved, but they weren't. They're still doing it, Tola whispered, her voice raw. They'll take more people. Dayo's jaw tightened. And the police. Who do we report to when everyone there is in on it? Silence. Tola's fingers curled around his. We have to stop them. Dayo met her eyes. He had never seen her like this before. Determined, fierce, unshaken despite all she had suffered. She was right. The law wouldn't help, but they could do something. We burn it, he said. Tola nodded. We burn it. And burn it they did. This fire wasn't just for revenge, it was for justice. He struck the match. The flame flickered, danced, then devoured. The fire spread fast, licking at the walls, creeping under doors. A siren blared. Shouts echoed from upstairs. The town was waking up. Tola grabbed his hand. Run! They sprinted through the halls as smoke billowed, flames curling toward the ceiling. By the time they burst into the night, the fire had consumed the building. The sky glowed orange. People poured into the streets, watching in horror as their secret crumbled. Dayo and Tola didn't wait. They had one last thing to do. An hour later, the news broke. The footage spread. Images of the burning hospital, of the underground horror they had uncovered. Anonymous tips flooded in. And this time, real authorities got involved. By morning, the town was surrounded. Arrests were made. The corrupt officers, the doctors, the ones who had smiled in broad daylight while butchering people at night. The hospital, the trap was gone. But most importantly, no one would ever disappear there again. Tola stepped out, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. She sat beside him, leaning against his arm. For the first time in days, there was peace.